Done.
Welcome to the Wellness Connection podcast with Fiona Kane. My name is Fiona Kane, your host, and today I've got another personal trainer on for you. A very different person, very different personal trainer. She's a holistic personal trainer. Her name is Cathy Lloyd-Prowse. Hi, Cathy.
Hello, Fiona. I'm looking forward to being on here. Thank you for asking me.
So today, our focus today is going to be self-care for over 50s and things related to menopause, because that's something that you and I can both relate to quite a lot.
Very much.
And also, we have a lot of clients that fit that category as well. And I know that with both of us, there's a lot of confusion and a lot of people just don't know what they don't know. And it is really important for, I think, particularly women, to understand the different needs of their body at different ages and different times, and to make changes because of that. And I think if we don't understand that, we're at really high risk for lots of issues. So I think it's just a really, really important topic to ensure that people are educated so that they can be engaged in managing their health and understanding what they can do about it.
Absolutely. I think education is definitely the key. Knowledge is power.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are things, some of the things over the last couple of years that I've learned in regards to this, even just that I've learned this year, it's blown my mind. So I thought I knew a lot. I didn't know that. Oh my God. So anyway, so let's just start chatting about this. So my first question to you, because menopause and perimenopause are sort of big. They are really big issues for women. They're a big experience. Tell us a little bit about what is perimenopause and then what is menopause. What's the difference?
Well, I guess I've been a personal trainer for 20 years,
Mm.
and I came from a corporate background.
Oh,
And
I totally forgot to ask that question. I
I
told
know,
you I was going to ask you to
I
tell me
know,
about you.
I'm all ready.
Anyway, how to know the host is professional. Yes, definitely tell us about
Well, I'll
you.
tell you that
And
first.
then we'll go into talking about
That will
perimenopause and
lead me.
menopause.
That will
Someone
lead
knows
me
what they're doing. It's not
really
me.
well. Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, so I was in the living in the corporate world of sales training, selling um, selling computer training to when we went from DOS to Windows. I was a salesperson selling that. Very
I used to know how to use DOS.
yeah,
That ages us, doesn't
this is it.
it?
See, we're over 50. Um, so I used to sell the computer training so people could learn how to use Windows.
Yes.
So that's what I did for a long time, and then I left there and went into recruitment, IT recruitment. So I used to recruit, help desk support people, um, and people in that project managements, that sort of thing. So I used to do that, and then suddenly I fell pregnant. I was 3 months into that role, loving it, and fell pregnant. Now I know how that happened, but it wasn't planned.
Mm.
And so that was a bit of, oh, okay. And I thought that I would just have my baby, and because I was so entrenched in corporate and sales and loved it, I would just go back to work. Well, that changed. As soon as I saw the scan, I became very, maternal and wanted to look after this little person. So anyway, um, I did go back to work, but not for, I wanted to go back. I took 6 months off, and then I went back part time. And anyway, I ended up not wanting to go back full time. So I had started exercising just before I found out I was pregnant and got to a certain weight that I was happy with. And then Aiden came along, and I was very lucky. I didn't have a lot of weight to lose, but I still wanted to go back to training because I was new to being a mum. I felt a little bit out of control, and being and training I had control of. So it was that gave me confidence.
Yes.
So I decided then, okay, what will I do? So, well, first of all, I had a personal trainer come to my house when Aiden was sleeping, and I thought, this is cool, and I really enjoyed it. So then I decided, just suddenly overnight, I wanted to be a personal trainer. So I was doing some cold calling for a recruitment company. So I resigned from that, did the course. Aiden started going to school, and then I started training mums. So I trained mums, and I was one of the first trainers in the inner west to train mums and bubs. So,
Okay, and we're in Sydney as well, by the way. So people are watching and listening to this all over the world. So
oh
just
yes, well,
clarifying,
yeah,
we're talking about Sydney.
we're talking about Sydney, and we're doing outdoor training in the park.
Mm,
So anyway, I did that for a while, and then and things happened. COVID happened. I did some voluntary work for another company because we were supposed to move to London. Then COVID happened, and we didn't anyway. So now I hit menopause at age 45, or perimenopausal. I'll explain the difference in a minute. And so then I didn't, it wasn't a breeze for me. It was all very, lots of things happened. Every symptom I think I got.
yes,
So I started exploring that, and the mums and bubs changed to women over 50.
yeah,
So now I'm more holistic because not only I'm passionate about doing exercise and moving your body and that physical self care, but there's also other self care that we need to be aware of. Like as your body changes, I started to embrace different nutrition, different health, world weight loss programs, different supplements. I started looking at things bigger picture,
mm,
which so now that's why I say I'm holistic. I look at the person and say, well, what would you really like to change? And changes, are hard. So if you're looking in the mirror and you say to yourself, well, when did that happen? I didn't see that wrinkle last week. This wasn't moving so much a month ago. I can't fit into my trousers. What's going on?
mm,
And so I will look at all of what's going on, and because
yes,
I mean, I work in the inner west of Sydney. I can do face to face with people. Then we can do Zoom. But if you can't, if you're happy with a personal trainer that's in your area, then I can still look at other ways to help you.
mm.
So that's, yeah. As I said, I want to share my experience through menopause to help you guys have a better time because there just may be things you're not aware of.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
it is such a big time. It is such a big time for women. I think there's lots of things that go with it, but I think
Oh yeah.
there is obviously it's just it is a transition. So we have the transition into puberty, and then we have menopause. But then it's having babies for those who have children, and
Mm.
everything associated with that. But then menopause is that next really big transition, and I think there can be a lot of grief attached to it, a lot of confusion attached to it, and there's lots of things going on. And also it is a time that it's not unusual at this time for women, if they haven't already, to be looking after aging parents or dealing with people and their parents or other people like that in their family who are
Mm.
passing away. So there's a lot of so even the changeover of that you have your parents, and then suddenly you might not have your parents, and so suddenly you're becoming the matriarch of the family. Or this, so there's lots of, besides all of the physical stuff, there's a lot going on for women of this age.
Mm. Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now to answer your question. So menopause is when you haven't had a period for 12 months.
Hmm.
So that moment is categorized as menopause. Now, perimenopause is the period of time leading up to that.
Mm.
So this is where you still might. So your period will be quite irregular. It could be heavy, light, all over the shop, right? Whereas because I was someone who was on time every month, knew what was going on, and then suddenly, oh, you're all over the shop.
Mm.
And also at that time when you may start experiencing those symptoms like night sweats, hot flushes, mood swings, vaginal dryness, and all these other things that are going on.
Yeah, yeah. It's a new experience for me, the actual being warm thing, because
Oh,
I'm in perimenopause at the moment, and I have thyroid disease, so I have had issues with my cycle in the past. So it was a bit confusing for me to know sometimes, if was I going into perimenopause, or is it my thyroid playing up, or what was it? But because of my thyroid disease, being cold is I'm sort of cold, one of those people that's
oh,
always cold, and suddenly I'm warm a lot. and it's actually a whole new experience for me.
Oh,
So now I've got to. I always had to have layers of clothing in case I got cold, but now I've also got to have the layers in case they get hot. So it is quite a new experience for me. That feeling warm thing that I had
mm,
never really experienced before, except for on really hot days. It is quite a new experience for me, and it can be quite. I know for a lot of women that that part of it. I think that really affects your sleep as well. We're going to go
oh,
there, but that's
we will go there.
it is a real, it's a major issue for a lot of women when they're going through that sort of perimenopause.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
So I went through as I said, the night sweats,
Mm,
and the hot flushes where same thing. I had to have a cardigan with me all the time because I'm a cold being a small frame, I'm a bit of a cold frog as
mm,
well. So I remember we were on holiday in Perth in Western Australia when it all started to happen. I have a cardigan, then
mm.
I didn't have a cardigan, then I've got a cardigan, and then I didn't have a cardigan. And it comes on so fast, like the night sweats as well. It just feels like this heat just comes up, and comes, and then
Yeah.
hot.
And it's funny because I can feel that it is cold around me, but I am
Mm,
hot. So
mm.
I have an awareness, like, I don't think it's hot. I know I'm hot as opposed to it's hot. I tell my husband all the time, I'm just getting hotter as I get older.
That's what I do.
But yeah, you can feel that it's cold, but you're not cold.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the
yeah.
strange sensation.
There's I can't remember it off by heart now, but there was a little thing I had on the fridge about I'm hot, I'm really hot, and it's not a hot flush or something. I'm not feeling really hot today, but and it's not a hot flush, something for us women in our 50s. Um, yeah, so it these are the things that start to happen, but there's other things that are happening that are more hidden that you're not aware of, which is some of the things we will talk about as well. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
yeah, that's where it's essential for women as we age to look after ourselves. Self-care in this time, if so, as I said, some people breeze through it and they don't even know. But I think 1 in 4 women will suffer
Mm,
some
yeah,
sort of symptom. So it's,
yes.
you know,
So, and that's where I wanted to go into the different things that happen to our body as we
mm,
age.
mm.
So do you want to start sort of talking
Yes,
about that?
and
What
I've
happens
just
to
got
our
some
body as
notes
we're
so I
aging?
don't forget. So,
Sure.
as I said, usually people will start entering
Perimenopause.
perimenopausal when they're about 45. So
Mhm.
anywhere between 45 and 55, usually it starts to happen. General rule. It can
Yes.
be earlier, it can be later. If for some reason you have to have you lose your ovaries,
Mm,
then it can earlier than that.
yes.
It can kickstart menopause then
Mm,
because what's happening is your estrogen and your progesterone is decreasing. Your ovaries are not producing what they used to. So
yeah.
this is where all the trouble is.
Yeah, and actually the trouble too that, and I didn't sort of fully comprehend this until I recently was doing a course about it, but our progesterone kind of slowly reduces, but our estrogen doesn't quite work that way. What it does is it comes and goes.
Mm.
So we actually have it sort of dissipates and then it surges and then dissipates and it surges. And so I think a lot of the symptoms are actually caused by that surging, that sort of back and forth thing. Like if it was just one way or the other, if it was just slowly declining, because testosterone in men, it slowly declines.
Yes,
It's
but
quite
not
different for them. They have this slow thing whereas with us, we have these surges and then it declines and surge and decline. So that's why we can get such dramatic symptoms associated with it
mm.
as well, and why we can feel like we're going pretty crazy.
Yeah, you feel like you're going crazy.
Yes.
I know I had moments of that.
Mm,
When I first, as I said, not just a cardigan on and off, but also mood swings. Why am I cranky about something?
mm,
You know,
yes.
and it's really important to have supportive people around you when you're going through this, and talk to your husband or partner about it. Like, this is starting to happen. This could happen to me. I need your
Mm,
support. I mean, Peter was amazing.
yes.
Because sometime I'd be yelling at him. I don't know why I'm yelling at him. And he'd go, and he'd get it,
Yes.
he'd just understand. And often as a couple, looking working through this together as a couple will make an easier transition as well, and hopefully help your relationship.
Yeah. Well, something actually I just wanted to quickly sort of bring
Mm,
up. I've got a little sheet here to refer to as well. But just to get the full ramifications of this, and you might have more that you want to expand on this, it's up to you. But essentially, when we're talking about as women, our progesterone reduces and so does our estrogen. And to understand some of the things that they do, therefore some of the some of the problems we have. So progesterone helps us build muscle. It's
mm,
anti-inflammatory.
mm,
It helps with our bone density. It supports our grey matter, so the neuroplasticity in our brain, which is one of the reasons. It's a suggested reason why we get brain fog because the progesterone it reduces. It helps with pain tolerance, calming, and anti-anxiety, which is why so many women start getting quite anxious
mhm.
when they go through this period, because their progesterone that used to help them keep calm
It's
isn't there,
declining.
isn't present, or not as much as it was. But the other thing that progesterone does is it stabilizes connective tissue, which of course will help stabilize your joints, and that's a really big issue for women exercising as they get older, because if you
Yes.
have that reduced bone density, reduced muscle mass, and that reduced that connective tissue thing, but the combined issue with all of those three things is that you're at much higher risk of injury, aren't you?
Yes. Um, so I'll comment on that. So
Mm,
yes, bone, um, often I sort of think about bone health as a silent enemy because
mm,
you don't know if if your bones are brittle until you often have a fracture,
mm,
and then it could be too late. Not always too late, but you know, not a good not a good thing to happen. And
mm,
the other thing that happens as we age is our balance is affected.
mm,
So it's like you've got this balance being affected, and then you've got your loss of progesterone and estrogen, which affects your bones. So bone health is really important. So one of the things that we need to be doing when we age is changing the way we exercise.
mm,
So when we're younger, we 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 often do a lot of cardio. I'm not saying you stop cardio when you get older. You still do it. It's still important, but you really have to incorporate strength training into your exercise routine. And what I mean by that is strength training, resistance training. You can use your body. You don't have to use a weight or a resistance band or whatever. You can like push-ups or resistant training, squats or resistant trainings, and then you can add to that with either machines that you use at the gym or weights, dumbbells.
mhm.
You know, dumbbells, tins of food, which people used through COVID because all the weights were everybody bought weights, you couldn't find weights. Um, so people would use different things, you know. So strength training, and the other thing people don't do strength training is there's a myth around strength training that if I lift weights, I'm going to
Mm.
become a female Arnie Schwarzenegger, right?
Yeah.
Which is not going to happen.
No, that's you can't accidentally do that.
Can't
You
accidentally
have to
do
do a
that.
whole lot to do that, plus he was
That's right.
taking steroids as well.
That's right.
That's why he's had those heart issues. But yeah, no, that you cannot accidentally, if
No.
you look at how I always think of how Linda Hamilton looked on, Terminator
Oh, yes.
all those years back. That's aging me as well, and I s "Oh, wow," but you have to work hard for that.
You have to work really
That
hard
is
for
not,
that.
and she didn't look like Arnie, she looked great, but I
No,
mean,
she looked awesome.
but she had to work
That
really hard for that.
tone,
Yeah.
that muscle.
Yes.
I do strength training,
Yes.
but I don't look like Arnie Schwarzenegger, a female version,
Yes.
but I'm getting that strength,
Yeah.
and underneath, it's improving my bones, right?
Yes. Yeah.
'Cause I
Yeah.
actually have osteoporosis. Now,
Yeah.
my osteoporosis is hereditary,
Mhm.
um, and so I've been aware of that for some time. So I've always, since probably 40, I've been
Mhm.
doing strength training.
Yes.
And even though I still have issues, because there's other thing you need to do, you can get tested for these things.
Mm.
There's a bone density scan that you can do. It doesn't hurt,
Mhm.
and it'll tell you the levels of your bone, this particular um, ratios,
Mm.
and you'll get the results. You discuss them with your doctor, and then they'll tell you what you may or should or should not be doing.
Mm.
But they are covered by Medicare. They cost you nothing, if you have a
Again, in
bone
Australia.
in Australia, every 2 years,
Mm,
if you have a bone density scan, it costs you nothing,
mm,
covered under Medicare. You take your GP and discuss what options you have. So that is one thing, self-care, that you need to do, okay? Incorporate strength training, get bone density tests. Now,
yeah,
the other thing is nutrition. What should we need to do for bone health as well? We need to make sure our vitamin D is there, our vitamin C is there, so that you want to eat foods that are enriched in that.
mm,
Um,
yes.
and then if you might need supplements,
Yeah,
you know.
and of course we need all of the minerals. We hear about calcium a lot, and
Oh,
calcium's
yes,
amazing, but
yes,
we don't just need calcium. We need calcium and magnesium and boron, and so many minerals, and you need zinc, and you need vitamin A. You need basically all of the nutrients,
yes,
and so
yes.
it's not just simply about, oh, I'll take calcium, that will solve the issue. In fact, actually, just taking calcium on its own, that's not going to necessarily help your bone, because that calcium is not even necessarily going to get into your bone.
That's right, because some
So,
people don't absorb. So that's another thing that I found out, even though
mm,
I, for years, worked out in the sun,
mm,
um, I wasn't absorbing vitamin D. I am now, but I wasn't. So
yes,
even though I was outside, and that's the other thing, because we put sunscreen on now because
yes.
of that campaign years ago, slop, slap, whatever, slip, whatever it is,
Mm. Slip, slop,
slip,
slap. I'll
slop,
sing the song, but the people will tune out if I start singing.
slap. I'll probably join in. Then that we work in vitamin D. So
Yes.
you don't want to get burnt because in Australia our sun is very damaging.
Mm.
So you've got to find that balance between getting the
Mm.
vitamin D and not getting
And
sunburn.
it's a bigger challenge for people with darker skin. And so
Yes,
you and I both have very light skin. And I know
yes,
myself, I've had issues with vitamin D. So if we're having issues, if you have darker skin, it's a lot harder to absorb your vitamin D from the sun.
mm,
And what people don't understand is you actually need cholesterol is
that's another
how
thing.
you do that. So
Yes,
cholesterol is how you absorb your vitamin D from the sun, but cholesterol is also how you get your vitamins and minerals into your bone.
yes.
So I think a lot of people have been scared away, told that cholesterol is a terrible bad thing, and it can be in certain numbers. Yes, it can be, but cholesterol on its own of itself isn't a bad thing. Lots of structures in our body are made from cholesterol, and it's really, really important for getting those really important nutrients into the bone. So don't be terrified of cholesterol. And if you're avoiding your egg yolks because you've been told that cholesterol is a bad thing, no, 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 no. Start eating your eggs again, yolks and all, because that's where the nutrition is.
There, I've been diagnosed with high cholesterol. Like there's
Mm.
good cholesterol, there's bad cholesterol.
Yes,
And then what they want to put me on statins. Now
yes,
I don't want to go on a statin because it affects my muscles.
yes.
So what I'm doing now is, and this is where education is really important, and you need to ask these questions.
Mm,
I know when I first was diagnosed with menopause,
mm,
when I was going through, and my GP didn't know anything. And
yes.
this is the other thing. You've got to find somebody that knows what they're talking about, and don't just say, okay. Like, just don't sit there and say, you could, all right, accept what the GP says. You've got to be proactive in finding out what works for you.
Absolutely. And this is and I always try and confer, like, I am not anti medical at all. And I think the medical doctors absolutely have their place. And, I work with a lot of them, and, they, we're all part of this whole environment of health professionals.
Mm, mm,
However, whether it be your personal trainer, your nutritionist, your GP, or whoever it is, you do have the right to work with the people that you trust, that you feel have your interests at heart.
mm,
And, certain GPs or nutritionists or PTs or all of us will actually maybe will focus more on, we'll learn one specialty a bit more, or we'll learn about certain things a bit more. So you just might find that one GP has a bigger focus on and a knowledge about one issue, whereas another one has knowledge on something else. So
something
yeah,
else.
this is never to, whenever I discuss, because I discuss this a lot myself, but whenever I discuss issues with GPs or doctors or anything like that, it's not hating on any other health
No.
professional. It simply is we all have the things that we're good at that we know. And also, you just need to find whoever you have on your team, it just needs to be someone that you feel that you can trust and knows their stuff in regards to what you need. And it's quite all right to choose a health professional that is the right one for you.
Absolutely. And so I questioned the statins, and I went,
Mm,
I don't want to go on them. So what else can I do? So
yes.
I can get a scan of my heart
Mm.
to see if there's any blocks,
Yes,
any
coronary
issues.
calcium
Okay.
score is the name of
So
that scan, and in Australia, it's about $200,
yeah,
and it's just a CT scan. It's a really,
it
really,
doesn't hurt.
there's no, it's not invasive, nothing at all. So that is something that's really, really simple. And just clarifying too, because not everyone might have heard of statins. So statins
Oh,
are a
statins is
class of
yeah,
cholesterol lowering
yeah,
medication,
that's
and
right.
I think I will actually. I've done it talked about it before previously, but I think I need to do a whole episode about cholesterol because
Good idea.
it's a very complicated topic, and it's not as simple as HDL is good, LDL is bad, full stop. It's much more complicated than that. But what Cathy is saying is right. You can get a coronary calcium score, which gives you a really good indication of your risk of having a heart attack, and depending on that and all of the other numbers, it's not just about your cholesterol number, it's about them in relation to all of the other pathology numbers like your
That's right.
insulin and your blood glucose levels and your triglycerides and your CRP, which is inflammation. Depending on all of that, then is the conversation about whether or not you need to lower your cholesterol. Then
Mm,
and only then. But it's not immediately your cholesterol's high, you need to take statins. And as Cathy was explaining before, one of the side effects that happens in, I can't remember the percentage of people, but it's a large enough
it's up
percentage
there.
that I see it quite a lot, is muscle pain and potential muscle wastage. And I actually saw this recently with a client, and I won't go into too much detail because I don't want to identify this person, but this person came to me and they were in a really bad way physically and a really bad way mentally. And I assessed with her that she needed to go back and talk to her GP about her statin medication because I felt that it was causing a major part of her problem. And guess what? It was.
Mm.
And a couple of months down the track now, she's doing great because she's gone off that medication. So, again, I don't advise people to take or not take medications. It's a conversation with your GP. But if you're armed with this knowledge, it's a conversation you can go and have with your GP and may make the right decision for you.
Yeah, well, as I said, if I didn't ask that question, I I just would have went on them, and I thought,
Yes.
"No, I don't want to go on them." I looked at the side effects, as I said. So
Yes.
now I'm gonna go and do this scan and see what that comes back with. Now, maybe I still need to go on them because of other risk factors, but the other risk factors for me is not there. I'm not overweight.
Mm.
I don't
Yes.
smoke. I
Yes.
don't drink a lot, so all you take all the things into
Yeah.
account.
Yeah. So,
So
and
or
Dr. Ross Walker, he talks about this. He's a cardiologist based in Sydney. And what he talks about is you
oh, good.
treat risk. You don't treat cholesterol, you treat risk. So,
Yes.
what Kathy's referring to there is she's looking at the overall picture of her health. And does the cholesterol number matter in that picture? I don't know all of her details, but probably not, right?
Probably not.
Whereas there's someone else who is carrying a lot of weight and they're insulin resistant or diabetic and they've got high blood pressure or those kinds of things, then it's a different conversation.
Yeah. So it's looking at the big picture.
Yes.
So, and it's the same with menopause. You look at
Mm.
the big picture. You look at it because every woman is different.
Yes.
So, and but what we're talking about today is the things that do happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it does affect your bone health. It
Yeah,
does
it
affect
does.
your muscle mass.
Yeah.
It does
And we were
affect.
talking about some numbers in regards to that, weren't we? Because
Yes.
it was quite shocking. So I think it's worth, if you can grab those, I think it's worth
Yeah.
people understanding these numbers in regards to bone loss and muscle loss.
Yeah. So you start losing muscle mass at age 30, which is a bit sad.
Yeah.
And then, what was it, 3.8% of muscle mass
Or 3
wide,
to
3
8%.
to 8, yeah,
So
3
between 3% and
and
8%
8% of muscle mass per year, per decade
per
is
decade
gone.
after that. So if you think about that, if you're on the higher end, it essentially means after the age of, well, somewhere in your 30s, you're going to be losing maybe up to 8% of
Per
muscle
decade.
mass per year. Now that's huge,
That's huge.
right? And I don't think to explain what that means, because people are like, oh, what do I need muscle for? Now, it's not just about wanting to look like Linda Hamilton
No, it's
in
not that.
Terminator.
No.
It's about the fact that muscle holds up your structure. It holds you
Yes.
up. So it actually allows you to maintain independence. It allows you to have function. I mean, just simple things like, it might sound silly, but I spent a lot of time in palliative care with mum a couple of years ago. And the ability to be able to get yourself out of bed and to the toilet, right? It might sound really, really silly. However, muscle mass allows you to do that,
It
right?
does.
So
Absolutely.
it's actually what we need for absolute survival and functionality.
And quality of life.
Yes, yeah. So it's Linda Hamilton, great arms, wonderful. Like, but it's not
It's not
for
just that.
for women in our age group. That is kind of like, yeah, that's happy byproduct. If you do that, fantastic. But it is not about that for us. It is actually about function and quality of life.
Yes.
Same with bone mass. So I think it's important to understand the reason that health professionals go on about muscle and bone so much is
Mm.
actually so that we do live longer than we ever have
Well, that's the
before,
other thing
and
that's happening. Yeah, we're
so
gonna
it's
be here for a long time. We
you got
wanna
to
have
keep that
quality of life.
body upright for another 30 years or
That's
something
right.
more than what you would have before. So we need to look after it. And there was the bone information. I think I've got here that
Mm.
the average woman will lose up to 10% of their bone mass in the first 5 years after menopause.
Yes.
And then it just
Right, right.
goes on from there.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
it's
here it is. So women are at higher risk of developing osteoporosis as they age due to the decrease in estrogen levels, which
mm,
play a role in maintaining bone density. It's
yes.
important to focus on maintaining a healthy diet. Another thing, more protein in your diet than you had before, and
Mm,
encouraging weight bearing exercises to support bone health. The other
yes.
thing that happens too as we age, our metabolism drops. So
Yeah.
therefore weight gain happens as well. So
Mm,
that's another thing that, and it's usually around our tummy. So it's another thing that happens, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, well, estrogen helps actually promote insulin sensitivity. So essentially, we're more likely to become insulin resistant
Mm,
when we lose that estrogen, and that insulin resistance is that what leads to weight gain for many people and can lead into diabetes. So that is, yes, why we do need to have a really good understanding of, as we get older, we need to learn how to maintain our muscle and bone. We also need to learn how to manage our stress and our mental health.
yes.
So it's all of those things we need to look at, and I know we could sort of talk about symptoms forever because we
Because it's
understand what they are.
important. Yes.
However, we don't have forever to talk
No,
about
we
it,
don't,
and
we
and
don't.
and I'd like us to sort of slide maybe more
Mm,
into solutions. And we already have started. You were talking about that before. You were talking about different exercises, but let's start talking about, so we know that there's a lot of issues come. Perimenopause, menopause, a lot happens, a lot of changes happen, and we really do need to start thinking about the future and about sort of maintaining that quality of life for as
yes.
long as we possibly can. So what are solutions? Well, some of them, I'm sure, that the things that you've done yourself, or just solutions that, as a health professional, can be really helpful with that.
Well, as I said, with bone health, is these a lot of these things are impacted by the things that things you can do yourself. Some things will be out of your control. I've found that in my situation.
Yes.
But if you feel like you've done everything you can do, then you can accept that and then, move on, kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I talk about with my clients genetics and epigenetics.
that's
So
right.
genetics is the, I think Dr. Walker uses this analogy. He talks about it as being the loaded gun. So the genetics is a loaded gun, and epigenetics is whether or not you pull the trigger.
Mm.
And epigenetics is lifestyle. And
Yes.
my understanding that epigenetics, for most things, it's about a 70 to 80% influence. So roughly around there, we've got 70 to 80% influence on whether or not the trigger gets pulled. So you're
Mm.
working with that. The 20% or whatever it is, can't do anything about
You
that.
have no
But,
control.
and you can't do anything about the genetics, but the epigenetics you have a lot of control over. And that's why these solutions are so important, because people think, oh, I just give up weight. And even, by the way, I will say, even if you do take, um, whether it be hormone replacement therapy, or whether it be natural hormone replacement therapy, or any of those, they still won't work very well if you don't put these other things into place, because there's
Absolutely.
so much that happens in this time of life that you get all this inflammation and all these changes to the body, that just relying on replacing it with hormones isn't the solution. I'm not saying it's not part of the solution. It absolutely is for many women, but that alone, not enough. But that combined with the lifestyle things that we're going to be talking about now, very powerful.
Mm. So lifestyle,
Yes.
exercise, incorporate that strength training more than you were before.
Mm.
Diet, Nick, diet. Look at what you're eating. Look at how often you're eating. Look in
Yes.
how much you're eating, because your body will change. As we age, carbohydrates are not, in my opinion, and the research I've done, is not as much as our friend as it used to be.
Mm.
I'm not saying cut out carbohydrate, because we need carbohydrate. And I don't like
Yes.
things where where I don't like programs or diets when they say, let's take this out.
Yes, unless you need to completely cut things out, then it's better to just work out what the right balance is for you.
Exactly. So, but you do need to have more protein. So,
Absolutely.
now I've got a stat on protein, if I can find it, but basically we don't eat enough protein. We think we
Yeah.
do, but we don't.
No,
I
we
think
don't. That's actually, my clients will all tell you, one of my biggest mantras is every
protein.
time you go to eat, the first thing I want to be in your mind is, where's the protein?
Yeah, as
I'm
much
quite
as
obsessive about it with my clients.
I can't find it now, but
Yeah.
anyway, I'll find it in a second.
Yes.
Oh, here it is. I found it. Aim for zero point 0.8 to 1.0 grams of protein per kilogram
Yeah.
of body weight daily. So for a 60 kilogram woman,
Mm.
that's 48 to 60 grams of daily protein. And
Yes.
there's about, say, if we're looking at an egg, it's probably about any between of the size of the egg, 6 to 8.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of always go with about 5, but yeah, it depends on the size of the egg.
Depends
You're
on the size
absolutely
of the
right.
egg. Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
I would
that's
even say that that number that you've just said there, I with my clients, I tend to go just a little bit higher than that.
oh, I
But
would.
again, it's whatever works for the person.
Yeah.
But it's not unusual for me to meet people and you're lucky if they're having 30 grams of
Oh,
protein
I
per
know.
day. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
And it maintains muscle
yeah,
mass. That's why I'm going on about it. It
that's
maintains muscle
right.
mass.
It does.
It's what your
It
bones
helps
are
with
made
your
from.
metabolism.
Helps with your metabolism.
Yes.
It helps you stay fuller for longer. It
It helps with
stop you from
cravings.
being hungry all of the
Amazing.
time. Makes your neurotransmitters in your brain, serotonin, dopamine, melatonin, all the things. So, you absolutely, protein is the king. You have to have it at every meal.
And there'll be an article in Brave magazine about protein.
Okay, so Brave magazine is Women with Altitude. They make
Yes.
a Brave
Yeah.
magazine. We're both members of that as a
Mm.
networking group in Australia. So
That's
yeah,
right.
that's an online magazine, so you could look it up.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. So, and again, protein helps bone health. So you've got to look at what you're eating.
Mm,
Okay. Now, some say eat more regular meals, smaller meals more regularly. That's a big thing. Um, Whereas mainly a couple of years ago, you might have did 3 main meals a day. Maybe we need to mix that up.
mhm.
And then there's the supplements we spoke about. So anti-inflammatories, vitamin D, vitamin C, some phytogreens,
Yeah. And vitamin K2 is really important in all there too, for the bones especially.
so look at what you're. I mean, a couple of years ago, I was not a supplement person. I thought, no, I don't need this. I'm getting enough. I'm eating a healthy diet. I'm
Mm.
getting enough. But but most of the time, you're not.
Yeah,
So
and
you can
it depends on the individual. Not everyone
absolutely,
needs supplements, but many benefit from
yeah,
supplements, good quality supplements,
that's right. Good
with
quality.
someone who knows what they're talking about, working with you and looking at your blood test results and all of those things.
All of that sort of thing. Collagen can be an absolute
Yes, bone
um,
broth. All of my ladies,
secret.
my age and over, we're all drinking bone broth. I mean, people get collagen to put on their face,
Yeah,
and great, you can do that if you want to,
you
but
can do that.
you got to eat it.
You can eat it. You can put it in. Like I use a shampoo that's got collagen in it. I
Yes,
use skincare that has collagen. I take a liquid biocell to help with my joints, which has got
yes,
collagen in it. I
yeah,
take lots of things now that has collagen because it can't hurt.
mm,
Well, it might not reverse things, but it may slow things down. I mean, who
yes.
knows? It could reverse something. You don't know. Um, we live in hope, you know. But it is. It doesn't hurt you. You
Mm,
know, it doesn't hurt you. So again, look at. That's what I do. If I look at somebody and say, okay, what's happening? Maybe you need, I mean, I've got stories of people who start taking collagen and their joints have improved. They've
Mm.
avoided surgery because of
Yes.
low goodbye cell. So, you know, so I've embraced supplements in the last couple of years.
Mm.
So that's another thing you can do. Um, what else can we do?
I think the other one too that you had on your list that you gave to me was hydration.
Yes,
It's really important to
yeah,
understand that we need hydration, and it doesn't mean we have to drink 50 litres of water per day. For most people, it's probably just a couple of litres throughout the day,
yes.
depending on what they're having in their diet and exercise
And
and
you
all the
can
rest of it.
test. You can test. So if you look at your urine,
Yeah.
um, if it's clear, you're probably drinking enough water. If it's
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
you
And it
need to.
doesn't have to be absolutely clear, but just
No,
generally clear,
if
just
it's
kind of
dark,
yellowish, but generally clear. Yeah.
you know. Mm,
Definitely. And if it starts to get painful or and when or just really really kind of dark and icky looking or really strong smelling or whatever, that can be a big
that
clue
can
that you're not
be a clue.
hydrated enough. The other one is the pinch test. Like if you pinch the back of your hand, how
Oh, I
quickly your
didn't know
skin
that
goes
one.
back down. Well, that I mean that happens as
Yeah,
we age as well because we
yeah,
lose we
I know.
lose collagen and all
We lose
that.
collagen. Not
So it
getting
just
back
doesn't
up
go back
quickly.
down so quickly, but that can give you a clue of how well hydrated you are as well. I think
Okay,
so. I don't think I just made that up. I don't think I did. Maybe I did. You never know. Don't hold me
definitely
to
the
account for that.
urine colour of the urine is a definite,
Yeah, yeah, that's a definite one. And
definite
the other thing
clue.
too is, are you thirsty?
Yeah, that's another.
Sometimes we don't ever realize that it's thirst. We think we're hungry, we're thirsty, and and just things like headaches and fatigue, and just starting to feel a bit out of it. Sometimes that can just mean that you haven't
Mm.
drunk enough water.
But water is just so good for everybody.
Mm.
Everybody, not just menopausal women.
No, and
That's
people don't
important.
understand as well, like if you think of that fluid that cushions your joints, well, that's made from water.
Yes,
So,
of course.
just some things like, you just will simply start having more joint pain and more inflammation because you have less water. So something as
Yes,
simple as that, can make a big difference in, how you feel.
absolutely, absolutely. And another tip I've got too is that when you're going through these night sweats and you wake up and you can't get back to sleep,
Mm,
water will help you get back to sleep.
okay.
So I had that. I was lie there for ages trying to get back to sleep because I'd wake up from a night sweat.
Mm,
As the sheets go off, the sheets come back on.
mm.
But if you have water and if you drink some water, but it's help you'll find it way easier to go back to sleep.
Okay. All right. And see, that might feel counterintuitive for women because I know
I know,
myself with the bladder issues, like, oh, I don't want to drink water.
but
But
you
that
get
is,
used to it. Your body gets
well,
used to the water.
yeah, yeah, and I suppose if you're hot, it sort of makes sense. But
Yeah,
I think
have
I
it.
might have
Yeah,
to try that because I wake up hot a lot at the moment. So yeah, I think I'll have to
give it a
try
go.
some more water and see how I go.
Yeah, I always have some near my bed
Yeah.
all the time. So, yeah. So I think that might be pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots more we could cover, and maybe at some point we need to have a part two
Yeah,
of this because there's
probably.
so much to
Probably.
talk about. Because the other thing too that we wanted to talk about, and we maybe can go in more detail another time, but it is also kind of the mindset stuff as well.
Yes, yes.
And that is, if the right nutrition and moving your body are two things that will absolutely help with the mindset. But the other thing is to, yeah, I think it's something, I don't know, in my mind, it's something along the time. It's accepting where you're at. So
Mm,
there's an acceptance of this is where I'm at, this is the body I'm in, this is what I need to do. And we've talked about educating yourself so
mm,
that
mm,
you kind of, once you've got the information, then you kind of go, oh, these things I need to do. And just empowering yourself and knowing, okay, I'm going to put these things into place and do the best I can. And but it is just another transition in life, and that's
mm.
okay. And it's okay to feel the different ways that we feel. But I think it's and maybe connecting with other ladies who are experiencing it as well, because of your
Yes.
friendship group, you won't be the only one
No,
experiencing it.
exactly. And it's getting more. The other thing that I've noticed
Mm,
is we're talking more about. Well, here we are talking about it, but we
yes.
women and people are talking about menopause symptoms a lot more easily
Mm,
and confidently than they did a couple of years ago. And now even
yeah.
workplace is aware of what we go through and how that affects us.
Yeah.
So there is
Yeah.
more awareness, and I always think if you're aware and acknowledge something, that's the beginning of the path to health or success. And
Yes.
focusing on the mindset thing, one of the books that I love is called Atomic Habits,
Mm-hmm.
and it's by James Clear, and it talks about, I don't know if you've heard that term, um, what is it? Do no, be, do, have.
Mm-hmm.
So to change anything, you need to be that person and believe you are that person to
Mm.
do the things you need to do to have what you want. So if
Mm.
we take the example of exercise, and a lot of people, you know, want to start exercising, but they struggle to do so. I mean, I deal with this every day. You've got to be the person. So if you say to yourself, and this is what James Clear goes on about, um, I am an exerciser. If you start to believe that I'm an exerciser,
Mm.
you know, then you will make and help your surroundings to support that. Then you will do the things you need to do, which is start exercising and moving the body, and then you will have the things that you want. You
Yeah.
will have the strength, you will have the fitness, you will have the weight that you want, you will have all of that.
Mm.
So it's the be, do, have principle.
Yes. And
And
that showing up for yourself is how
showing
you
up
begin
for
to
yourself.
trust yourself and how you begin to
Yes.
know that you can do it as well.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, and so when I'm working with people, whether it's through one of my weight loss programs that we offer, or whether it's doing an exercise program, that mindset stuff we will talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I say to myself, I say, I get to exercise.
Mm.
Not I have to exercise. I get to exercise because not everyone can. So
Yeah,
I'm really
no.
lucky that I can. And
Mm.
any day above ground is a good day, as they
Yeah,
say.
that's right. Brings rain.
So I'm aware of time, so I
Yes,
will wind things up here. I'm sure we could probably do a whole other episode on some of expand on some of these things in
love
the
to.
future. But
Mm.
if anyone wants to get hold of you, I will put this in the show notes as well. But how can they contact you?
There's an email which is Cathy. So my business is called Femme Fatale.
Yes.
So you can contact me at Cathy, Cathy, at femfatale.com.au.
Okay.
I have a website, www.femfatale.com.au.
Yes.
They're probably the best way,
Okay. I'll
and you
pop
can
them in the
follow
show
me
notes.
on Facebook or Instagram, and we can
Okay.
put the handles on
No
there.
problem. I'll share all of that in the
I
show
do have a
notes.
newsletter, so there you go. Two things.
And you just said there's a newsletter there as well. Is that what you just
Yes,
said?
there's a
Sorry, I
newsletter.
spoke over you. A
Yeah.
newsletter. Okay. So I'll put all of that in the show notes if you missed any of that. But I would just really like to thank you for your time today, Cathy.
Thank you. It was
That
great
was really
having a chat
interesting
about all this interesting stuff.
and just really important information. But thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for everyone who is watching and listening. And please, I'm going to ask the same thing I always do: like, subscribe, share if you get value from this, because I really want this message to get out to more people. And this is one of those messages really, really important, especially for us ladies, just a little bit on the other side of 50.
Yes, very
So
important.
thanks again, and thanks, Cathy. And I will see you all again next week. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Fiona. Bye.